Story 1, this is Fireteam Delta. Dad's coming home. Welcome to the Military Veteran Dad Podcast, where it is our mission to bring every dad home. I am your host, Ben Cloy. I'm a United States Marine veteran, husband, and a father. We will bring authentic conversations to inspire action in your life so we can close the gap between the dad you are today and the dad you want to be tomorrow. This is the Military Veteran Dad Podcast. Welcome back. Welcome back to episode 56. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to drop you guys a reminder that starting a few weeks ago on Fridays, we are now dropping solo episodes. They're between 5 to 10 minutes so far. Might go a little bit over, but right now we've done 5 to 10. If you have a question that you want me to answer, something about life, something about the military, something my perspective, being on the other side of these interviews every day, drop me a question. In the bottom of every one of the show notes, there is a link to submit a question. Drop it there. I'll go ahead and we will answer your questions using those solo episodes. And if we get quite a few, we'll do a whole solo episode on them. And I know that those will be helpful because whenever one dad asks a question, there's usually 50 other, if not more, other dads having the same question. So if you have a question that's been on your heart wanting to ask me, start with some fear, click the link, drop it in, and we'll go ahead and get that answered. Today's episode is with Aaron Hale. Aaron Hale brings a story that, if you listen to this episode with kids, isn't necessarily going to be appropriate for a few points because he talks a little bit about how it was like being hit by the IED. And if you were in Iraq or Afghanistan, this is going to hit extremely close because Aaron Hale survived being hit directly with an IED. He was in the EOD group with the U.S. Army. He brings an amazing story of resilience and just overall determination to continue to live. He brings an inspiring story of how he shows up as a dad on the other side of this. And I won't dive into his story because he tells it brilliantly and he really goes into the emotion, the depths, and he really tells the entire thing. So I want to honor him and let him be the voice of his own story there. I can say, since recording this episode, I have purchased some EOD fudge. And I can tell you, my wife loves fudge. So I've bought a lot of fudge everywhere. I've bought Mackinac fudge, which is up in northern Michigan, which is like famous handmade fashion fudge. That really was never that great. I've really never liked any of the fudge that my wife convinced me we needed to buy, except when I bought EOD fudge. This fudge was absolutely like crack condensed into hard chocolate. I bought the peanut butter one because my wife's always loves peanut butter. But man, there was no way that you couldn't go through and polish off an entire row in one sitting because it was just like a magic explosion of flavor in your mouth. So if you have anybody in your life that likes fudge, it's a little bit pricey, but definitely worth every dollar. And if you have anybody in your life that is a thank you, these will be definitely my go-to thank yous in the future for anybody that I need to really make sure that they know how important they are in my life, because this EOD fudge was the real deal. So with that, I just want to dive right into this episode. And there's links to also that EOD fudge and Aaron's story. There's a great YouTube video on his website that also highlights his story and does it brilliantly. And then all of his products are also on his website. And I've linked his Instagram and Facebook down there as well. So all of that there is for you. But let's get started with today's episode with Aaron Hale. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on. I love the show, and I think you're doing a great thing with it.
And I'm looking forward to this take two because we had the internet try to stop this conversation from happening. So we are going to fight the internet, and we are going to get through this today.
Well, like you said earlier, I made a sacrifice to the internet gods, and hopefully they were appeased.
I love it. Aaron, as I research your story, you have a very interesting story of how you reached today. Go ahead and unpack a little bit about what your family looks like and how you ended up getting where you are today.
Well, it's such a crazy story. I'm astounded that it was me that is kind of in the middle of this wild story. I joined the military in 1999, and I absolutely knew my entire life up until about a month before I gave the oath that I'd never be in the military. It just wasn't in the plans. I didn't have any plans. I had actually zero ambition, zero goals. I lived a pretty vanilla life, not a whole lot of struggle, no hardship. Midwest Ohio, had a great upbringing, loved a terrific family, and zero direction. Um, and of course, I just was loving life. But that kind of coasting catches up with you. It catches up with everybody at a certain point, and it definitely caught up with me when I got to college. So I got to college and I gained my freshman 50. Um, I spent about 3 semesters not going to class, and eventually the school just said, don't come back. In fact, it was kind of a mutual thing. I didn't know where my classes were, so that was easy, not coming back. And but it was really embarrassing because I was on academic probation first, and then an academic suspension, which means I wasn't allowed to go back to a Ohio State college for 5 years, and that's just what a kick in the pants. I was that much of a slacker
You
that
were labeled as like you should just take a pause for 5 years.
yeah. Uh, so state school, and so I got my act together. I lost the weight. I actually moved out with my dad in California. Got a couple jobs. I was really working back towards you not being such a aloof uh, guy. And I went from something like 230 pounds to like 175 in about 6 months, just from eating right and walking everywhere, and basically just living better. But I still needed to make that tuition money back, and uh, that's when I realized that living in California, I may never do that, just from cost of living. So I looked at other avenues, and in the military just seemed like the right thing. I needed the discipline, I needed direction, and and of course, the military started out as such a selfish endeavor. It was all about me and what the military could do for me. So I joined the Navy. I was going to be a chef, so I joined as a uh, uh, Navy cook, and I was going to do 4 years, get the GI Bill, and get out. Of course, 14 years later, uh, my life was on a completely different path. But in the Navy, I worked my way up. I found responsibility, duty, a sense of honor. I was a sense of pride in what I was doing, and I quickly gained in rank and more responsibilities. I worked my way in 2 years. I worked my way to the flag mess. I was cooking for the 3-star admiral, the commander of the U.S. Sixth Fleet in Gaeta, Italy. And I was cooking this incredible cuisine. I was in my off duty times. I was traveling around Europe. It was amazing. But by 2004, I'd we were in, full 2 wars were in full swing, and by this time I'd really gotten a taste for the military life, and I really loved it. I wanted to do something that was more direct. So when my time in Italy was up, they sent me to Rhode Island. But soon after being stationed in Rhode Island, I volunteered for duty in Afghanistan, and I basically went from cooking for the admiral and his staff to cooking for something like 5, 6, 700 NATO ISAF troops. So I was cooking for soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and I was cooking for Italians, Spanish, Portuguese. And it was completely different, but equally as rewarding experience being on the battlefield. Uh, and I still, to this day, I have connections, friends I've made over there during my first deployment that talk about the kind of stuff this flag chef brought to the Army DFAC, the Army Chow Hall out in the sand. So I think I made an impression, and I really loved it. But while I was there, I met some EOD technicians, explosive ordnance disposal, military's bomb squad, and uh, within moments of learning what these guys did, I was hooked. The technical aspect, the tight knit brotherhood, the fact that they're first responders, that they get to save lives on the battlefield. It was just it clicked in my mind, and as soon as um, I could, I put in for a transfer to strike rates from or from culinary specialist to EOD. The only problem was uh, my my job, my rank was undermanned. The rank above me was overmanned, so they weren't going to let me out, and they weren't going to promote me. So when my time in Afghanistan was up, my contract was also up for renewal, and I let it expire. Went over to the Army recruiter, handed him my jacket. I said, I want to go EOD. That's the only job I want. And they welcomed me in as a soldier. I got to keep my rank. I didn't go to basic training. I went to like a gentleman's course version of basic, where you get all the uh, technical, all the Army knowledge without any of that indoctrination, the
Mm-hmm.
dogma stuff. Um, so basically, I guess I was a sailor in a soldier's uniform, going through EOD school. But and of course, the first sergeant at the EOD school really hated it when on our morning runs I would sing "Anchors Aweigh." But uh, I, for a year I trained up to be EOD, and soon after graduation I deployed to Iraq. Not long after returning from Iraq, I deployed back to Afghanistan. This time I was in 2011. I was then, and by then, an Army EOD team leader, running my own EOD team. We were busy. It was uh, one of those periods and one of those areas in Afghanistan where they're just it's like playing that game on it comes on your computer, Minesweeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everywhere, just pressure plates and your plastic jugs everywhere you step. So our team was working overtime. We do post blast analysis. We'd run on route clearance packages. We do tactical insertions, but with Chinooks, uh, you name it. For 8 months, we were running. I about 8 months into it, it was my time for a 2-week R&R back home. I got to see my son turn 1. Got to spend Thanksgiving with the family. Got to see my dad, my son's grandfather, dress up like Mickey Mouse for his birthday, which, knowing my dad, is like a once in a lifetime thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a fantastic uh, last page in the photo album. Because when I got back, I tossed my luggage into the back of our Jerv, the armored truck we roll in, right on top of the robot. And our team, my team, started its way back out to our area of operation from the airfield. And the convoy commander we were in along the way said, "EOD, we've got an item, got something suspicious item on the side of the road reported by the Afghan police. Can you check it out?" Well, of course. And we got right to work. I tossed the luggage off the robot out of the truck, and of course, it's a pressure plate with a jug, 9-volt battery, like we've been seeing every single time out there. Of course, we also, besides rendering safe, disposing of these IEDs and UXOs, we're like the CSI of the battlefield. So, one of our jobs is to, safely, if we can do it safely, get as much evidence as we can off the battlefield so that it can be studied. So by the time we had this thing, the robot had it separated. I jumped out and made my approach to collect what evidence I could. About 20 or 30 meters from the original item, there was a secondary device that hadn't been detected, and it detonated right beside me. It tossed me in the air, sent me onto my knees and elbows. I was still conscious, but the lights had gone out. And I thought for a moment that my helmet had just gotten pushed over my face, and that's what was blocking my view. So of course, did the functions check, right? Wiggle the fingers and the toes, knees and elbows, and all that, and everything seemed to be intact. So I reached up to fix my helmet just to pat the top of my head and find out that the helmet wasn't even there. And that's when I thought, oh no, this is bad. The Army is going to want that back. It's funny. What goes through your head at certain times, what's been drilled into you, like you don't want to fill out a flipple. And, I don't want to do field loss or have to pay for a helmet. My commander is going to jump down my throat. But soon my team was dragging me back to the safe area. Medics were running up from the cordon, and the medevac was on its way, right from the airfield we just left. So within 48 hours, I was back in the United States. This time I was in Walter Reed, and I was trying to figure out how to be, how to survive, how to come to grips with this new life of mine as a blind person. The blast took both my eyes. It cracked my skull so that I was actually leaking spinal fluid right out of my nose, and blowing out both my eardrums. And it caused some scarring, some burning on my face. But it virtually, from the neck down, was virtually untouched, which is amazing. I don't know how they set this IED up as a pressure plate and then only hit me in the head, but thank goodness we Hales are very hard-headed. Couldn't have hit me in a better place. So yeah, that's how I got started down this road as a blind person. But at the beginning, it was right after the shock. First, of course, you want to read, and you don't even have time to think about worrying yourself, that being a victim, or that worry. There's nurses and doctors and family members, and of course admin people left and right. Sign this, sign that, which I didn't even know what I was signing. But I had my family there, but it was so busy. It wasn't until maybe a week or two later when I finally was catching my breath. I had moments to myself, and I wasn't going in and out of surgery, and I was the demons start creeping in. Why me? What if? I was feeling guilty, angry, embarrassed that I let this low tech these people fighting us are in flip flops, and man jammies, and I'm one of the we're the most highly trained fighting force on the planet. How did this happen? Mm-hmm. How did one get past me? But, it was the training. It was my family. It just wouldn't let me feel sorry for myself. So I decided that if I was going to be a blind soldier, I was going to be the best damn blind soldier I could be. And I learned how to use the assistive technologies, the cane, the my talking, my phone has the voiceover, so it does the text to speech, my computer, all those kind of things. I started as soon as I could get onto the internet. I started researching blind, doing this internet search for blind plus outside, blind plus running, blind plus whatever, and I started finding that you know there was a blind guy, Eric Weinmeier, climbed Everest. He's the first and only blind person to ever climb Mount Everest.
I've heard his story. It's a powerful one of having a solid ropes team. It was the key to the key to a lot of his success was having a solid ropes team around you, and that team is the
Absolutely.
ones that you learn to lean on in life.
Yeah. Well, I've actually heard that story quite a few times since I sought him out and I climbed a mountain with him. And I've been at speaking, just speaking engagements with him. We're now friends, and yeah, he's definitely an inspiration. Um, Another blind veteran, Lonnie Bedwell, is the first blind person to kayak the Grand Canyon, and I saw him out, and I went kayaking. We did class 3 rapids in Montana together, and I started, I quickly learned that it's not about um, what we've lost, what we don't have. It's about finding systems, new techniques, new tools, new ways, and of course, you like Eric talks about having rope teams, and I definitely um, I use this same metaphor as an EOD team is that the three person EOD team, at least in the Army, they're used the standards of 3-person team. They're given it's a quad con, one of those big shipping containers full of tools, from bomb suits to robots, power tools, hazmat kits, uh, you name it, from bullets to nuclear bombs. We have to uh, be the first responders. We've got to be prepared. We have to have all the tools that we might need. And then that shipping container follows us out to the battlefield. When we were in Iraq, we our hooch would be right next to this thing. We'd have to pack our armored truck, which isn't quite as big, so we have to leave some tools out. But we cram every box onto the seats and shelves and fill it full of everything we might need. But of course, some tools have to stay behind. And then, like Afghanistan, the goat trails. We're dismounted, we're on foot, and we gotta decide what tools we're gonna carry on our back when we go on patrol. So we leave a lot of tools behind, but we still got to do the same job, and we still got to perform at our best. So we end up doing everything basically with a few bare charges of C4, a carabiner, and some rope. Um, I That's just like life. Don't worry about the tools you left behind. Uh, Focus on finding new strategies. Focus on your environment. Find what you can learn, how you can get creative, and find a new way to attack the same problems. I began running marathons, climbing mountains, whitewater kayaking, and speaking to groups across the country and telling the same message. And about almost 4 years after the bomb took my eyes, uh, I was just coming back from a speaking engagement and I was on the phone with my new girlfriend, Michaela, who we're childhood friends. And well, our parents were actually childhood friends. And um, we'd just been started up a conversation not too long ago, and I'd convinced her to come out from California to Florida, where I live, for a 1 week vacation / first date. And she went home. I went on a speaking engagement. I was just off the plane and dropping my bags back at my house when I was feeling really fatigued and dizzy. I didn't know what's going on. So I told her I was going to lay down for a nap. I don't know how long it was till I woke up, but it was this splitting headache. In fact, that doesn't do it justice at all. I had within minutes I had to call 911 because I knew something was wrong. Of course, it was funny. You're calling 911 and the operator says, state the nature of the emergency. And I say, ma'am, I've got a terrible headache.
Yeah.
But she said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad's the pain? And I said, ma'am, I've never felt pain like this in my life. And I've literally been blown up before. She said, the ambulance is on its way. Uh, so, yeah, it turns out bacterial meningitis had crept into those skull cracks in my sinuses that had been patched, either hadn't been fully patched or reopened, and now I was fighting for my life all over again. And whether it was the bacteria or the heavy doses of antibiotics, uh, it stole what was left of my hearing that the blast hadn't taken, and I was quickly going deaf. But Michaela came right back to my side. My mom came down from Ohio. My sister came to visit, and they were nursing me back to health. That when the doctor broke the news to me and said, you're gonna be completely deaf, and I said, wait a second, you're telling me that I'm gonna be totally blind and totally deaf. So I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again. Huh. There's a silver lining to everything. You know, uh, I got home and there was a chance that I would regain my hearing again with a couple of surgeries and cochlear implants. Um, but it would take over 6 months for first the illness to go away, the virus to clear, the bacteria to clear, and then surgery on one side of my one ear, and then tuning in, and surgery on the other ear and tune that in. And it's a very drawn out process. So for 6 months, I was locked inside my body. My whole world ended at my fingertips. I'd also lost that inner ear sense of balance, so I couldn't even get on my treadmill to get into shape to train. I was just stuck sitting at the like the kitchen breakfast bar
Mm-hmm.
with nothing to do. It was isolating. It was scary. It was lonely. Just thinking about it all over again, it's one of the most horrible experiences of my life, just being isolated like that. But
Because the only sound you
Michaela,
really have is your own thoughts at that point.
what's that?
The only sound you actually have are the thoughts you have in your head or the conversations you're having with your head,
Yeah,
which is the
uh,
worst person to have a conversation with usually because it's the doom and gloom person that the world's going to come around and end around.
I know. I could send messages out. I could still talk, but it was like the whole world was shut off. I could, when I say silent, I mean, even the, like, the jawbone conduction, when you can hear yourself eating like a tortilla chip inside your head, all of that gone, no sound, and of course no light. But I'd been used to that. But the combination, it's terrifying and frustrating. It was awful. Um, Michaela had flown out just days after returning from our first date, and she never left. She stayed there. She'd nursed me back to health. When my mom and my sister had to get back to their lives, she quit her job. She didn't even go back to her apartment to Sacramento to move out. She had her friends pack her up, and they did like a road trip to bring her stuff. And um, there's there's definitely easier ways to get a second date, but it was worth it. but
Yeah.
uh, you know, she was my angel. She was the one who conceived of writing every letter of every word that somebody had to convey to me in the palm of my hand, and that's how we spoke to each other. She would write, and I would speak back to her, and that was tedious in its own right, but it was the only alternative. What's funny now is that she still sometimes writes in the palm of my hand, but it's secret messages, like under the table or at a restaurant or something. Like your son is eating with his mouth open again, and then I just pop out, hey, close your mouth in your chair. But could definitely come in handy. Um, but she is the one who got me through the half a year of isolation and healing time and learning how to hear again with the cochlear implants. Um, she definitely saved my life.
Hmm.
And together we decided that I've been preaching this whole don't worry about what you don't have, and work on gratitude for the things you do have. And I decided that I wasn't going to feel sorry for myself. And the holidays were coming up, and I love the holidays. We were going to have this epic Thanksgiving dinner. We're going to invite friends, family, neighbors, you name it. It was going to be huge. Even invited a few EOD students from the schoolhouse, which we do. We turn that into tradition every year. Some students, sometimes they want to save leave days or don't. They get stranded at a school that's closed down for the holiday. So we invited a few over, and from like I started preparing for this feast weeks in advance. I started with desserts because I knew I could freeze them, and I was making cakes and pies and cookies, and uh, I fell back on my own skills of cooking, which I could do just from muscle memory. And I started making fudge, and I would do batch after batch of fudge. I was, tossing in, nuts and spices. I'd even dump in a little, something from the liquor cabinet. And, I just experimenting. I was having fun. Michaela said she saw something on my face she hadn't seen in 6 months. It was a smile, but the fudge was piling up. So she started sneaking it out the front door. I say sneaking, like you got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy.
Yeah.
But she was giving away. Friends and neighbors were coming back, and just they were saying that was terrific. Can we buy more? We've got a baby shower or a birthday or something coming up. So, well, of course you may. And all of a sudden we started this business. Um, we I was having fun. I was cooking, and we were actually making a little money out of it. And what became of it was EOD, or instead of explosive ordnance disposal, extraordinary delights. And now we've got this thriving business that we both get to work together on, and it's out of the home office, though we've moved into a commercial kitchen. So I get to stay home with, um, now our three sons, because Michaela uh, had 6-month-old uh, identical twin boys. And well, she didn't have them at 6 months. She had them 6 months ago. No, but um, it's fantastic. We get to run a business and be close to our kids and have that connection. And life is amazing. I just ran on December 8th was my 8th Alive Day. And to celebrate, I ran the California International Marathon, uh, which is now my ninth full marathon. And of course, with the infants, I ran it without a mile of training. So, at 42 years old, I'm still proving that I can do just about anything stupid.
whether you're even if you didn't have all your sights and senses, it still happens.
But yeah, that's how we get to here. Now, I get to be a stay-at-home dad, and I get to be creative in the kitchen, like I always love to do. And I'm an entrepreneur, which I never sought out to be, but
Mm-hmm.
it's an amazing learning experience.
Well, there's a couple things in that story that I want to dive back into. And I'm a big believer that life happens for you. So, like, you can't prevent life from happening to you, but you can definitely figure out what you can do with it. You can always help someone. You can always just be a friend to someone. Like, whatever you've gone through, there's someone else that needs to hear what you've gone through to help them. As a dad, how do you think all of this that's happened to you has helped you become a better dad?
Absolutely, absolutely. For one, I don't think of any challenges as insurmountable, and I hope I'm able to teach that to my kids. Is that there's always a way. There's always a solution to the problem. Um, I mean, there's you if you. I like how I heard it. Was it Dakota Meyer? Said it. Um, what was it? He said that until you can't change anything about it, you can't study, you can't train harder, you can't throw money at it, you can't do it a different way. Um, you don't have a problem. What problems do you have in your life? Those are just inconveniences. Until
Mm-hmm.
you can't change anything about it, you don't have a problem. So I just look at everything as an opportunity, and that's definitely. I mean, I may have had it to an extent before the injuries, but it is definitely one of the top of my mind every single day after the injuries, and I hope I can teach that, convey that to my sons.
It definitely sounds like the pieces of who you are today were there before. And I I never was in Afghanistan or Iraq, so I'm always looking at it from the outside. But I've always kind of understood PTSD as like you just experience a lot of life in a short amount of time. And it's up
Mm-hmm.
to you to figure out how to use it. And it sounds like in your case, it really put a big pile of fertilizer on the seeds of earlier in life that just really needed to grow. And now you've almost become a better human being by actually losing the things that everybody else has.
Well, we all become stronger because of our struggles. It's not despite them. It's because we work hard. We work out in the gym. Our muscles get stronger. We study in the library or study at school, and our brain gets stronger. Our mind functions better. It's the same with all of our life struggles. The harder something, it's the harder we go through. The things that we go through are harder. The more resilient we become.
Mm-hmm.
And people describe being resilient as like a rubber band. You can get stretched and go under through stress, and then your ability to bounce back. Humans aren't rubber bands. Every time we get stretched, every time we have given pressure or have to work harder at something, uh, when we come back, we're not the same. We are stronger.
Even a scar, I always like the analogy that a scar tissue, wherever you have it on the skin, actually heals 2 times stronger. Or even a broken bone. A broken bone will actually heal stronger than the bone was before it broke.
Right. No, it's a great analogy, and it's true. We're forged by our hardships, so
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't avoid hard work. We shouldn't be afraid of a difficult road, a rocky road ahead of us. We should be encouraged by it. We should not seek out trouble, but we should be encouraging the opportunity. Be excited for the opportunities ahead.
Another question I was thinking, let's time travel back to those moments that you were in Walter Reed. If you could leave a sticky note next to yourself back then, from your point of view now, what words would you want to leave to someone else that may be in Walter Reed right now, or maybe recently released, that you want a piece of advice that they need that can fit on a sticky note?
Keep your sense of humor. I mean, that besides Michaela, I think it's been my sense of humor that has pulled me through some of the most difficult times. 2 weeks before I was injured, one of my fellow teammates in my company was injured, and this was while I was still on my R&R. So I was I was stateside when a fellow team leader was injured, and I was in DC. So I was one of the first guys to visit him. I was the first one. He was still in the ICU in surgery when I went to his room. The nurses wouldn't tell me what was wrong with him, of course, because privilege. But I went. They let me stop in his room, wait for him to come out of surgery, and um, the on the chair beside his bed there was like a wounded warrior project. It was like a hoodie, some shorts, and one shoe. I thought, okay, got it. So he wheeled him in, and I don't know if he was loopy from the anesthetics or what, but he's just got this personality. He's like, "Hale, dude, what are you doing here?" This guy just lost a leg.
Mm-hmm.
he's just got the best attitude, and he's telling me about what he did, what happened to him, and he's like, "Hale, I think I kicked myself in the face." So he's the one who was like, he could keep his sense of humor through probably one of the most scariest moments of his life. And I thought, I've got to remember that, and I always have. We spent weeks together in the same unit at Walter Reed, and we were back and forth, just like we were still in the shop joking about things, but we
I'm
were
sure
also.
he had a good few jokes when you ended up back there yourself.
I know. You gotta be able to laugh at yourself. You gotta be able to laugh at the situation. And
Military members are usually pretty good at self-deprecating humor.
oh yeah, well, some of my humor is maybe a little bit abrasive if directed at others.
And that's why it's always good when it's safe and pointed back at yourself. Another
Mm.
question I was thinking, was there ever a point during your process of having this all happen that you were not giving yourself permission to live a life after this happened? Like that you were just kind of like, let's put this in neutral, and I don't think I can take a step forward?
Uh, I even tried that for a little while, but it doesn't take. I get bored really fast. Even um, even if I didn't have the business, the kids who of course keep me busy, and a wife who won't let me sit on my rear end too long, uh, I don't think I could do that. It would just be, I would get antsy. I need to
Mhm.
be doing something. I need to be challenging myself. Uh,
I like that. It's a little bit like that. There's like the natural part where you're just like, I'm just gonna give up I'm not gonna give myself permission to live. Like I this somehow I'm being punished almost maybe. But then it also sounds like you had the right people in your life at the right time, and literally took your hand and walked you through the darkness and found some, not necessarily a literal light, but definitely found the light at the end of the tunnel for you to be able to step into a life that you never could have imagined.
well, the truth is, I was married uh, during when I had my injury, when I sustained the bomb blast, and it was not a healthy relationship. The truth is, and I don't want to. It's the custody thing is still kind of under litigation, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But uh, it was not a healthy relationship, and I couldn't. Well, frankly, I couldn't deploy to anymore to escape the situation. So I had to face it. And the answer really was that I had to get away from unhealthy people, and I had to be, I had to make my life just about being around the right people. So I asked for a divorce. That was, and still that whole situation is probably, it definitely is the hardest, um, the most terrible thing I've ever gone through, including the bomb blast and the meningitis. This divorce and separating myself from this person is a very traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm. As you think about your life now, and you got the chocolate business, you've got your kids, where do you see the legacy of Aaron Hale going?
Well, the next thing is, of course, we want to grow the business as far as it can go. But of course, my legacy will be my children. I want to be a terrific dad, and I want to raise amazing, little people. I want to teach them. Frankly, I want to cram everything I've learned in the last 40 so odd years into their heads right now.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's a process, and you got to let them learn. So I'm just trying to teach them how to, have manners and be respectful and just be good people.
Did that wisdom come to you naturally, or because most military dads that I've found as I've started this podcast, they stay like there's a world where you would have stayed focused on your service and only kept the questions in your head about like, why did this happen? Why did it matter? Why did I live and my friend died? These questions, and it all stays on their service. And very few dads actually focus on trying to create really great adults. Was that
Mm.
easy for you, or was there some moment or story that kind of like woke you up to the possibility of what you or the privilege that you have being called a dad?
Well, like I say, the every once in a while, I still get those, like I call them, the demons that try to creep in, and I think about from time to time how hard it really is, and things can be difficult. Things, how much I would love to be able to see my kids. Uh, how much I'd love to see my wife and my parents, my siblings. How much I would love to be able to drive again. Because I always loved being behind the wheel. All these things. Be able to, go out, go hunting,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Um, but I don't. That's one of those things that, I don't worry about what I can't do. I focus on what I can. I can. I'm here to hold. I can hold my children. I can have a tickle fight with my older son. I can. We have story time each night where instead of reading to them, we listen to an audiobook and we talk about it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I find ways, and focusing on what I can do and focusing on them rather than me makes life not just bearable, but wonderful.
I like that. And what you're recognizing is that a lot of that stuff is nice to have, but it was almost a very abrupt season in your life. That there was a season in my life where I had all of these things, just like there's a season in every dad's life where you have poopy diapers, and that season eventually ends, and nothing you can do will bring back your kid's poopy diapers. It's gone. In your case, it's a little bit more connected to yourself, but this is just really a new season, a new challenge of your life, and someone walked by and took half your toolbox, and now you got to figure out how to survive it on the island almost, and be the best person you can be with what you've got left, and to really take that to the next level of how do I make this knife that I have super sharp so that I can do more with it.
But I thought diffusing bombs was scary. You tried diffusing a poopy diaper without looking.
Yeah, that's almost like an own, like it's a little IED there. If it's like a little landmine, if you're not careful with your hands,
Uh,
especially if you got like, if it's one of those explosive ones that goes up the back of the onesie.
oh my gosh.
Those are, and you're like, your wife probably comes home and she's like, he missed half the chest.
I don't just yesterday. I don't know how Owen, one of my boys. I don't know. It's like he actually missed the diaper, but it's like it came out straight backwards. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's it's just I just when that kind of stuff happens, I just I laugh. It's another. Yeah, I just look at it as another challenge. It's hilarious, and the whole time I'm cracking up because it's sure it smells, it's sticky, it's gross, but it's wonderful. I'll get to be a real dad. I get to change diapers and I get to play with them. I get to feed them. Um, Today, Owen fell asleep, over my shoulder, and I heard a 6-month-old snoring.
hmm
That's a wonderful sound.
hmm And it's one is probably because your head's not filled with a lot of noisy sounds to remember, or like overly noises like most people can hear now. So that sound, I'm sure, is a very strong memory even now of there'll be a time when your son's doing something you really don't want, and your memory will go back to like, it was so much easier just when he was snoring on my shoulder.
Well, I think every age poses its own challenges.
It does. Where not where my
Yeah.
youngest has the terrible threes. It's not terrible threes, it's trying threes. Like she's just a straight pistol, and everything is her way or the highway, and she's gonna burn the house down around us with anger and frustration. And multiple times today, I actually heard, "You're not the boss of me. You're not the boss of me." And I'm hearing
Oh
this
my
from a
gosh.
3-year-old, so it's just like,
Nice.
it's just life. What about there's your story is very reminiscent to a guy that I had in the podcast, Chris Kegg, and he was also in Iraq, but he actually, I can't remember the exact situation, but his body just stopped working. Nothing, didn't have really anything related to the war, but his body just stopped working, and his everything below his head, he was paralyzed, so he's been in a wheelchair. And he owns a gym in Pennsylvania where he helps other people with disabilities try to just find ways to prove to the world, kind of like yourself, that you are capable of doing something. What kind of adventures do you go on with your kids? That I can imagine you have a different set of adventures that you go on because your skill sets are a little bit different. Have you? How old is your oldest?
He just turned 9 in November.
Yeah, so he's probably right at that age where he loves going out with dad on adventures. So what does an adventure look like with Aaron Hale?
Oh, we travel a lot. We were recently in New York City, and that was a lot of fun. He loves to fish. He's an incredible athlete. So, basketball, soccer, all the things that if I tried to play, it would just be far too painful. He's got an incredible arm. I mean, the last time I played catch with him, we had those, they were like tennis balls and the Velcro mitt,
Velcro, yeah.
and I would take both of the mitts and use them as shields.
I can imagine
And
that's definitely
and
tricky.
and this little kid would just give me wilts. All right, that's enough.
Yep, daddy's
But
checked out.
we Cameron's a big fan of Jocko Willick's what's it called? Way
Warrior
of the
kid.
Warrior Kid.
Yep.
He loves them, and he actually started working out with me in the mornings. So our adventures are to the garage, where he's maxing out on pull-ups and push-ups all the time. I'm so proud of this kid. It's terrific.
I could imagine there's a different dad out there that's gone through what you did, who probably has an internal conversation that says that like my son probably deserves having a full dad with all the senses. Do you ever get caught up into like, or is your son like even know that there's a different way a dad can be, or is he like fully accepting of the way you show up and like he's not anything wishing like, oh, I wish my dad could see? Like when you're playing catch, like, is there something that's going on in him that he has to deal with as well?
Well, he's never known me, because it happened just after he turned 1.
Mm-hmm.
He's never known me as a dad with eyes, but he definitely knows. I tell him stories. Of course, the family don't tells him stories about when I was a kid, and I wish they wouldn't. But uh, yeah, he's definitely knows that his dad has disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, he sees me doing all these things, kayaking, hiking, of course, like I just came back from the marathon, these kind of things, and I tell him, these you can do these things, but and you can see, but you don't have to. You can do these things if you have enough creativity and imagination
Mm-hmm.
to figure things out, and you just have to be a problem solver.
I think the biggest riddle that's not actually a riddle, but somehow for military dads, it becomes a riddle that even if you're the average military dad, kind of like me, just did military service, nothing really special about it, come home, started a family, a lot of times a military dad doesn't see themselves as a hero. And then when we don't see ourselves as a hero, especially when we come home to our kids, like we have probably guilt inside, we probably have issues that we're not dealing with, and we don't accept that every day you walk through that door, whoever you are, at whatever stage of your personal growth, whatever your stage of dealing with life, your kids will always look at you as a hero. And that sounds like what your son is like. He knows that you are a different dad, but there's no part of him that doesn't look up to you as his hero for who he wants to be in life when he grows up.
Um, I hope I'm giving him the best example I can put forward, and I hope what I'm doing gives him the best chance for success when he grows up.
Mm-hmm. And if you, by just being there with him, or even at the gym, I think that there's a lot just like doing that part together. I mean, for a 9-year-old or any kid in this day and age in 2019, with the amount of odds going against us that society will eat healthy in the future, like having a good gym habit at 9 and doing it with your dad and having that memory and bonding, that there's a world where after you're gone, he may go to the gym to connect with his dad as a memory. Like he may feel closest to you when he's lifting weights. And that's a gift that most dads won't even really realize. But those core memories, kind of like from the movie Inside Out, those core memories live on well past who we are and what we do with them every day. But it seems simple, but I'm convinced that those little small things will be the things that the kids look back on to reconnect with you after we're gone from this earth.
Well, like I said, I enjoy spending time with him. I love spending time with my sons, and I hope it gives him a stronger interpersonal communication skills, bonding skills, relationship skills with others, just being able to spend time, with his dad. I didn't, I did, my folks were divorced, so I didn't get to spend as much time with my dad. I didn't get to bond with him like I hope I am with my son.
You mentioned Dakota Millar. He's mentioned on other podcasts that after he got divorced, he made a very quick realization that 50% of his kids' lives were just taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that he has to be 2 times more impactful with every minute that he's there. And I mean, it's hard enough being a good dad when you have full custody. And then when you split it, you really have to go in with a stronger mindset that every moment counts, every memory counts. And I often like to frame a child's life as you only get 18 summers with them. And if you're 50-50 custody, you only get 9. And that's just how, like, it's a very small number. Everybody can visualize 18 in their head. And you only get 18 summers with your kid to do something legendary and epic before they go out into the world. So you really, as a military dad, we really have to be on the ball to make sure we're showing up to those moments, because that's where the most dividends in life come from.
Uh, yeah, Cameron gets plenty of time with his dad, yeah, which is great. Almost sometimes I think both of us may almost want some time free from each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't do television. I gave it up. About the same time I got detonated. Um, and so as a family, we decided that we don't need television. We don't do a whole lot of internet, though. Michaela and I, run the business from our computers. But so Cameron really does have to learn how to be creative, spend his time wisely. He does a lot of reading, a lot of art, playing with his Legos and being creative, building. And we actually spend a lot of time together in the kitchen because I'm always trying to come up with new recipes, and uh, he has, like any kid, enormous sweet tooth. So we just have fun with it. We just baked the walls for a gingerbread house today. So that'll be our next project is construction.
Your story of the kitchen and when your wife pointed out that you were smiling reminded me of we used to be big Restaurant Impossible fans. And Robert Irvine, when he was doing these kitchen remodels, he'd always go in to redo the menu. And whenever he'd make something really good, he would start doing a dance. And he gave me the gift that when food's really good, it should make you want to dance. So every time in the kitchen, when I make something good and I think it's good, which I'm almost surprised sometimes that I can pull it off, but sometimes I do. I'll like me and my youngest Lillian will start dancing in the kitchen, and like that's like I want the kitchen to be some place where memories are made, not just where something comes from. And even when we're making pancakes, there's oftentimes in the morning we'll start dancing to a song that's on Alexa or something um that's just fun time that is just a memory that we get to have together.
I love it. That sounds great.
And that's what I like. Even when you were talking about it, like the kitchen is overlooked as a tool to try to build a strong family. Like parents often think it's just a place where they need to be left alone so they can make dinner, but there's a whole world where the family can be integrated into preparing dinner, and it can be a family event.
Well, my son, my oldest son. I don't know about the little ones just yet, but Cameron, uh, when he was a toddler, and maybe even still now, if he could be screaming his head off, but music would just stop him in his tracks. I think I've got video of it. Turning on something, so turn on the music, just saying, telling Alexa to play something, and he'll be screaming. And then a second later, he's doing that little toddler, like, butt squat, two thumb boogie thing, they do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just, and even today, that's, he's like, Dad, I'm going to go play some music in my room. Okay, go for it. And that's his go to.
You're probably like the one dad that would allow a drum set in this boy's room.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't. Maybe you feel the vibrations, but and the neighbors coming by when they make a big noise, and you're like, "What's the noise? I don't hear anything."
Yeah, now we got to deal with him playing music too loud because the nursery is just lives down the hall.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that's like trying to walk around an IED sometimes.
We're gonna just stuff his room with insulation.
Well, Aaron, I've absolutely loved this interview. It's been a well range of topics, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share us your story because it definitely made an impact on me. And I know there's gonna be dads out there that did serve in Iraq or Afghanistan, and it's going to be like a time capsule for them. And hearing how you ended up where you are today, I think that will give people hope. And I'm a big believer that if you have hope for your future, that you'll have a lot of power in the present to move forward. And that's what I believe your story is. So I appreciate you gifting that to us. I have one last question for you. If you were to give one last piece of parting advice for military dads out there, what would you want a military dad to hear?
Well, I think I've already said it. Is that it can't be about you. It's not your life. Once you're a dad, uh, you're just a supporting role. Yeah, it's all about those kids. It's about their mother. It's it's if you think about it, like the chain of command. where really the senior NCOs and the officers are there to support the team so they can perform well on the battlefield. I might have some semblance of rank in my own household, but I'm just here to support those kids and make sure they're doing and growing and being what they're supposed to be.
I like that, and I like to phrase it as that your kids are going to matter, but there's a certain point of your kids that they're going to leave. It's a guaranteed certainty that they're going to leave your life, but your wife will be there to the end. And a lot of times parents can almost put all of their efforts in their kids and forget to actually be married. And then when their kids leave, they're sleeping with a stranger that they don't know, and their life ends up ending anyhow. So always got to keep it as it is not about you, but there are other things that you got to keep your attention towards. And your wife is that commitment to the very end.
Well, she won't let me forget it either.
I like that as well.
Well, eventually we're going to start going out on dates again. But right now the infants, thank goodness, mother-in-law is just down the road. So we do have a built-in babysitter, and we do get out from time to time.
That's good. I'm sure there's probably what did you do to me? How did this happen?
I have to remind her from time to time, she wanted this.
Yeah.
She'll go, your kids, and I'll say, remember when you said, when are you going to give me kids?
Yeah. But, it's always amazing, especially now that you've had multiple. There's a couple different things that happen. One, when the baby passes through, all the memories of pregnancy pass away. So the moment you get pregnant again, it's immediately like, what did you do to me? How did we think this was a good idea? And then the moment you hold it, you're like, oh, it's all good again. But then you go through the baby stage and poopy diapers and sleepy nights. And it's like, what the heck were we thinking when we thought this was a good idea to do this all over again? Because once they're older and like potty trained, you just forget all those long nights and different things. And then you hit the reset button, and it's always a big, hard reset button. And no one ever remembers that. And I commend you. You got lucky because you got two. I was often thinking like, man, if we just had twins at any point, we could have just been the last of everything right away. We wouldn't have, like, when you get done, I don't know if you're done having kids, but the last diaper is going to be the last diaper. You don't have to worry about hitting it again. You just got to go through some trenches of getting there. But
yeah, I remember going into our first ultrasound, and before I even sat into the neighboring seat when she was in the exam table, before I'd even sat down, it felt like they were already getting started. And the ultrasound tech goes, "Oh, having twins, huh? What? didn't know." No, I didn't know. We'd been talking about having another child, but the discussion was when how soon after the first one. I was thinking months and maybe years, not minutes.
That's a good story. Well, Aaron, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. I will make sure everybody has the links to your EOD fudge in the show notes. So if you want to drop over to Aaron and support him and his wife and his family's business with getting some fudge, those will be in the show notes for you. And again, I appreciate you coming in tonight, Aaron.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the patience and the technical difficulties. But I really appreciate what you're doing on this podcast, and thanks for having me on. And people can also follow us at EOD Confections on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks a lot.
Awesome, and I'll make sure those are in the show notes as well for a quick follow. That's a wrap. And thank you for listening to today's show, and I really hope you enjoyed it. The lifeblood of any new podcast are the reviews. If you haven't reviewed the podcast yet on iTunes, I would really appreciate it, and you will help us get the message out to even more military veteran dads. As John Maxwell says, if there is hope in the future, there is power in the present. Dads, it's time to come home.